Welcome to Advanced Construction Videos, where we show you how to tackle rocketry building techniques and more. On our website, we sell kits, motors, building supplies, and electronics. So come and learn, shop, build, and fly when you visit us at apogeerockets.com.
In this video, I'm going to start putting on the fin fillets. And for this, I'm going to be using an epoxy. And this epoxy we sell here at Apogee called Rocket Epoxy. What makes it different, it's a paste. So it's kind of runny, but not so that it's going to run off like a liquid epoxy, like a 5-minute or 30-minute epoxy. So it's going to stay put, which is why I like it. It's also very strong. And the reason we're using epoxy for this instead of like a wood filler for fin fillets or wood glue is that we're gluing to plastic. When you're gluing to plastic, you need something that will stick to it, and epoxy will stick to it. So that's the primary reason. And it's also structural, so it's very strong. So these wings right here, we need to make this joint really strong so that it's very stiff. Now I'm thinking I'm also going to put a little bead of epoxy along this fin fairing. There's a decal here that goes over the top of this, and if I can smooth it out, that decal is going to lay down a little bit nicer. We're kind of skipping ahead in this step. After you put the wings on, the next step is to put the vertical tails on, these two pieces, the wedges that we've made. These can be done with wood glue because it's paper to paper. So wood glue works really well for paper to paper. And they're wide enough that they're really strong. You don't need the extra strength of epoxy here for fin fillets. If you want to seal these right here, that I would recommend the wood filler. It is a paste, and you can apply it with like a spatula type of thing. You can work it into all the little grooves right there. And this stuff, as you've seen when we did the fins, it sands really easily. So you're not going to take a lot of work. Where epoxy, it's really hard, so it takes a lot more effort to sand it smooth. So this is non-structural, so using a wood filler for this type of thing would be perfectly fine. So I'm going to go ahead and start mixing up the epoxy. The epoxy is a 2-part mix, and it's an equal proportion of part A and part B. So I'm going to weigh it out and mix it in a paper cup first, and then I'm going to use the trick that bakers use when they're icing a cake. We're going to stick it in a plastic bag, and then we're going to squeeze it out. So I'll be right back after I start mixing up the epoxy. Okay, I've got my epoxy mixed up in a plastic bag so I can squeeze it out. I only need a thin bead. So you've probably seen me do this in other videos. Just kind of create a little dam here so that I don't put on too much epoxy. I want to keep these fillets nice and tight. So I put tape on the rocket. And this will just keep the epoxy from going too far up the wing. And I'm just trimming off the excess tape here. Okay. Have some paper towels handy because it does get a little messy. Okay, so I'm going to take my bag of epoxy, and you can see it's kind of ooey gooey. I'm going to squeeze it down into the corner, and I'll pop the hole. I'll pop a little hole in it. Okay. Okay, so that's kind of how you put it on. And I've got a little container here with a little bit of rubbing alcohol. And this can allow me to smooth it out. Try not to get too much alcohol onto the wood because it can make the fibers swell up. And if you still see a little gap, put a little bit more on. Okay, let me do this one here. Okay, so and if you get epoxy somewhere on the rocket where you don't want it, just take that alcohol, just wipe it off like that. Okay, so now these fairings, this is the same technique. I just want to keep it on as thin as possible. That was pretty good. Okay, so that's the technique. I'm going to continue doing this for my rocket. Do both sides, and then I'm going to let it harden overnight. So the next time you see this rocket, it'll be the next day.